Wow. It finally happened. The news we've been waiting for, the news that some of us thought might never come, has finally happened. We are expanding to a 12-team playoff format. This is breaking news, shifting away from the 14 playoff format that was instituted in 2014. Now, by 2026, maybe 2024, we're going to have a 12-team playoff system. Just to remind everyone else what it was before, 4 highest ranked teams, period. Didn't matter conference championship level or whether you were conference champion or not, just 4 highest ranked teams across the board. Well, breaking news today, as reported by ESPN, Bleacher Report, a bunch of other different places, the NCAA is moving to a 12-team format as voted on by its commissioners. Basically, you're going to have 6 of the highest-ranked conference champions. Again, doesn't specify Group of 5, Power 5. 6 highest-ranked conference champions across the board, and then 6 at-large bids, which will be determined similar to how they determine New Year's 6 bowl matchups right now with the CFP committee format. So, 6 highest-ranked conference champions, 6 at-large bids. This idea was presented by the SEC Commissioner, Greg Sankey, the Mountain West Commissioner, Craig Thompson, and the Big 12 Commissioner, Bob Bowlesby. So this is a huge decision. This similar format was suggested earlier this year, and it was pushed back upon primarily by the ACC. The Pac-12 and Big 10 also weren't completely happy with it. Well, now everything is going crazy with conference realignment, and they said something needs to change, and so the decision has been made. I'm going to bring out 3 main ways that this impacts college football in this reaction. Again, this broke out today. I haven't had a lot of time to prepare for this. This is just reacting to the scene here. Let's look at how this impacts college football. Well, the biggest thing right off the bat, it means that the Group of 5 now has a path to the playoffs. Again, it was not defined as Power 5 conference champions. And even if it had been, there's only 5 Power 5 conferences, obviously. So you have a at-large spot, a guaranteed at-large spot for the highest-ranked Group of 5 conference champion, whether that ranking is number 26 or whether that ranking is somewhere in the top 15. The highest-ranked conference champion gets to get in from the Group of 5. This also is fantastic because it didn't define Group of 5, Power 5. That idea of the divisions between college football, Group of 5, Power 5, still has not been solidified or agreed upon by any official board. It's something the media throws around. It's something that a lot of the conferences that are in the Power 5 like to throw around, or the Economy 5, as a lot of the Group of 5 conference commissioners like to call them. But again, this is not a formal recognition at all. In fact, if anything, it's a dissociation from that idea of Group of 5, Power 5 divide. So, you know what this means? Potentially, and again, this is throwing a lot of things out there, but potentially, you could have 2 Group of 5 teams advancing into the playoffs. Let me throw out a scenario for you. Look at 2012. Wisconsin, 8-4 Wisconsin, wins the Big 10. You could have a super high-ranked, top 10, top 5 Big 10 champion potential team coming into that conference championship game, and they could easily get knocked out by someone ranked less than them or unranked. Last year, Utah knocking off a 10th-ranked Oregon team, number 17 Utah knocking off 10th-ranked Oregon team. If you had an undefeated Mountain West champion, an undefeated American Athletic Conference champion, depending on who they played, they could easily slip in ahead of a Pac-12 or an ACC, or even in the 2012 case, a Big 10 champion, and you could get 2 Group of 5 teams. So not only does this open up a door for the Group of 5 to get into the playoffs, it opens up the door for anybody to, regardless of their conference, if you go out, you play a tough non-conference schedule, and you win your games at home in your conference, you've got a chance to make it into the playoffs. Whether you are the highest ranked Group of 5 champion or not, you still have a chance to make it into that, depending on what happens in the craziness of the conference conference tournament section of the season. Second thing here, this is a death blow to the 2-division format, the super conference format that a lot of teams have been pushing for, especially, of course, SEC and the Big 10. This is a death blow to that. This answers pretty much all of the grievances that was pushing that system in the first place. Again, it opens up the doors to many other teams to be able to get into a playoff system. It closes the idea that you have to be in the SEC, you have to be in the Big 10, you have to be in one of these 2 main conferences to have a shot at getting into the playoffs, because now one champion from every single conference is going to get a shot in there. You'll have at-large bids. You could still see a situation where the SEC gets 2 or even 3 teams into the playoffs, but every other conference, Group of 5 and Power 5, is going to have a shot at making it in. It also, like I said, brings parity. It closes that fake divisions between college football, because now it doesn't matter. All 131 teams now, with the teams that have been rising, 131 FBS teams have a theoretical shot of getting into and winning the national championship. And it also fuels financial interest in the smaller games, because now those games matter. You're not just playing for what has become a meaningless bowl system, even in the New Year's Six level. You are now potentially playing all these teams. Every team in college football is now potentially playing for a playoff bid. Now, obviously, as you move throughout the season, those potential teams that have a shot at the playoffs is going to get smaller and smaller, just like it does now. But you're still going to have a much larger group of teams that are attracting national interest, that are bringing in TV viewership, that are bringing in money and interest. And this is going to help a lot with NIL, because now you don't have to go to the Power 5 to make the playoffs. You can make it from anywhere. This is a great decision. It was a fantastic move, a timely move. One of the first times I've actually seen the NCAA move quickly to do something about a pressing need. And I think when you threaten something's existence, that's the oomph they need to get in there and get stuff done. So fantastic job again by the commissioners making this decision. I think also the third point here is that I think conference expansion is done for now, because the Pac-12, I made a video talking about how the Pac-12 needed to expand. Well, with this new format, they really don't. They can stick around with 10 teams, and they will probably, their conference champion will most likely, with the teams and names that are in that conference already, will most likely be one of those top 6 highest ranked conferences. Now, it's going to be close. It's going to be really close. If they stick with 10 teams, I still think they should expand to 10 teams. I think they should definitely bring in Boise State, San Diego State, or Fresno State, or maybe all 3 of those teams, and add a Colorado State as well. I do a whole video where I talk about that. You can look at that. I'll put that link in the description. So I do think that they should expand so that they are able to have a better guaranteed shot of making it into those top 6. But most likely, probably, especially with the bias, the Power 5 bias that is in the polls and in the media, their Pac-12 is going to be able to make it in. Now, like I said, it's going to be close between the Mountain West and the Sun Belt, the American Athletic Conference. Whichever one of those conferences on the East Coast is able to rise and become the strongest out of this whole conference realignment that's already happened. But Pac-12 is probably safe right now, so they're not going to look to expand to add any more teams, because they already don't want to drop their academic standards, so that's going to cut off a lot of potential teams like Boise State from being able to make it in. The teams that are left, when you are purely looking at academics, they're not necessarily up to the same athletic capabilities. I think the Pac-12 is also going to be looking to keep their noses in the air and keep their exclusivity that they have currently pushed for already. So Pac-12, I don't think that right now, with this decision, I don't think they're going to add any more teams. The Big 12 doesn't need to add any more teams. The teams they have coming in, they're going to be competitive enough to be one of those top 6 teams. So this is a death blow to not just the two division format of college football, which is a good thing, but it's also a death blow right now to conference expansion. Now, and I think it could even be a death blow potentially. I mean, this Texas and Oklahoma, if you're looking at moving to the SEC, where you're going to have to compete for a national championship, if you're having to compete for a bid into the playoffs, a conference championship with teams like Alabama and Georgia and Texas A&M and Kentucky now, and Ole Miss was good last year. I mean, you have so many teams in the SEC, and you got to compete with them to have a guaranteed spot of getting into the playoffs, versus in the current Big 12, where your best contender is maybe Oklahoma State, Baylor. I mean, those teams are good, but they're not Alabama and Georgia. I think Texas and Oklahoma, if I was Texas and Oklahoma, I would be reconsidering that move and looking at maybe, seeing if the door is open to come back into the Big 12. It just makes sense. Better chance of getting to that guaranteed spot as a conference champion. And also, with the teams they're adding, the Big 12, I mean, that would put the Big 12 at what? Is it 16, 18 teams? I had to do quick math there. So they lost 2, they brought 4 in, they were already at 12. So, yeah, that 10, 14. So that would put them at 16 teams. I think that would be a very strong conference. I think they would have a shot at definitely getting into the top 6, obviously, but also potentially putting up an at-large opponent. Second place in the Big 12 would also have a chance of competing with the Big 10 and with the SEC as it currently stands. So I don't know. I'm not saying Texas and Oklahoma are going to come back, but I would take a look at it. I don't think the Pac-12 is going to expand anymore. I don't think that the Big 10 is going to add any more additional teams. They've already said they didn't want to add any more additional teams to the 2 that they already stole from the Pac-12. So I think for now, the conference shifting around, at least at the Power 5 level, has stopped. Now, what does this mean for Boise State? Let's end the video on a Boise State note. What does this mean for Boise State? Well, like I said, this probably means that we're stuck in the Mountain West. However, that's not necessarily now a bad thing, because the Mountain West has really set itself aside as the top group of 5 conference. They've been doing it consistently for years, and I think last year is when the media started to actually recognize that they were the top group of 5 conference. Your main contenders, your main competitors for that at-large spot for that New Year's Six Bowl are going away to the Big 12, UCF and Cincinnati, your 2 primary ones. Then also you're, of course, losing Houston and BYU, another team that's joining them, but not from the Group 5. But Group 5 conference level. But your 3 main contenders there in Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, they're all gone. What's left in the American Athletic Conference is really not that impressive outside of Memphis. The Sun Belt looks like they're going to be getting stronger, but I don't think that is anywhere close to where the Mountain West is currently. You are sitting in a great spot, a fantastic spot, to claim that 6th spot as the highest ranked Group of 5 team, as the highest was one of those top 6 teams. And like I said, you're not just having to go for one slot anymore. It's not everybody just, most seasons it will probably be all the other Group of 5 teams funneling into that last 6th spot. But that's not necessarily the case. The craziness of college football has just gotten crazier, where there could be a scenario where Boise State's not the highest, or the Mountain West champion's not the highest ranked Group of 5 conference champion. But like I said, 2012, an unranked Wisconsin knocks out the Big Ten champion. Maybe they jump into the top 25. Maybe they don't. And now you're looking at, wow, we've just lost a Power 5 team that was going to probably fill one of those top 5 spots. Now we have an extra spot for a now Group of 5 champion, and now 2 get in. So this is a fantastic spot for Boise State to be in. Personally, I would prefer for Boise State to move up into the Pac-12 to have a better chance to play better teams on a regular basis, to make more money as part of a bigger conference, and have a better chance of moving into those playoffs with a slightly more guaranteed spot. But the Mountain West has been competitive. They have less competitors now that they have to deal with. I think you're looking at a situation where, in a pretty consistent basis, the Mountain West champion is going to be your team advancing into the playoffs. And this is a fantastic decision overall for Boise State. So obviously, it's going to be a lot of shuffling around, and it's not going to impact the next couple of seasons. I think 2024 is the earliest they'd be able to implement this. They're putting it right now for 2026 when the current the current playoff format expires in 2025, but they're going to try and push. The board has advised to try and push for 2024 if they can. So there's going to be a couple more seasons before this really hashes out, but the future is incredibly bright. When we're looking at year 3, year 4 for Andy Avalos, it can start to get really exciting, bringing in a lot more players. The future of Boise State looks bright. And when I did a video with Master Football, and we were talking about everything that Jeremiah Dickey is doing at Boise State, the expansion and everything that he's building there, he asked me, what is my predictions, my long-range projections for Boise State? We talked about the next 5 years, next 10 years, next 20 years. And I said, when my 20-year predictions, I said, when we get 20 years from today, Boise State will have had or been to a national championship game, and I think won a national championship game in the next 20 years. Well, with this new format, that timetable might have just been cut significantly. All I can say, as Jeremiah Dickey says every day on Twitter, is #what's next. Go Big Blue!